Ke Kembo Kembo Tatanyambi Amazulu, King Fumu Kyaku Isa, Zambi Mawesha, Zambi Alkabenisha, Zamonene, Zambiam Zola, Zambiam Kembo, Zambiam Kulu Kulu, Modimos Nisimana, Yangi Zoli Bluka, Betuabu Banabetu, Bayete Nkosi, Yangi Zoli Ibiluka, Modimos Nisimana, Kembo Zambi, Kembo Kulu Kulu, Bayete, Hallelujah. We give honor to the Most High of Truth that's continuing to help us break free from sorcery, Kimbundu, Sangoma, to do the righteous path and not the wicked, to do according to will and not our own. Bawadi Kolele for Bizumba, Bawadi Kolele for Kufinga. We're going to continue to rise up in this time. We give honor, I welcome, honor all of you doing the Most High's work. Lukumu to all of you that are walking the path of righteousness. You know, many of us are still struggling here in Kihishi, and I'm going to talk about what that is. They now say Keisha, which I don't know how Kihishi became Keisha, but it's lost in translation, right? Um, and Nada or Kulala, La La Land. Okay, we're going to talk about all these things, and hopefully, we will see Kama as a nation. The Kintwari will get stronger, and we'll begin to continue to expose a lot of things because a lot of people are going to be shocked very soon about who they're really messing with. Okay. And I pray that Tatanyambi will find everybody well. All the sorcery, Kimbundu, Sangoma, those who practice divination, they're going to soon find out the repercussions for that. And those who think they're going to get away with this stuff, they're not getting away with anything because that false temple that everybody thinks is going to reward them, it doesn't own anything, and there's going to come a split because that false temple planted all the Intiti Yambi, which is how we would say tares. Darnell was the Phoenician word, uh, according to the Sephardic Jews, which are Canaanites. Uh, and then you have the Ashkenazi Jews, which are descendants of Yapeta. You also have what's called the Ethiopian Jews. These are also Cushites and other descendants of Yapet of Samu. They're like, how should I say this? They are the illegitimate offspring of Banabetu who were scattered. Okay. So when we were scattered and we were scattered among the heathens, these are the offspring of those who come from the nations. And today I'm going to give you an understanding of the non-melanated people, how they came to be, because today you're going to discover in all of his lies, the real Messiah or the real God and the hypocrite God are both melanated. Okay? This whole thing about a non-melanated entity was all a scam concocted for those with their crafty counsel against the Most High's kingdom. Okay? There are people going to find out there are melanated angels that are righteous, and there are melanated angels who are wicked. Okay? There are leprous, you're going to see even the darker skinned races have their angels, but they're frauds because every single nation of the 72 tribes that come out of the Tower of Babel, they all had languages affiliated with themselves. Asia, the Chinese and stuff like that, comes out of this. Okay, you hear the different various of languages. Then you have what's called dialects out of those. Okay, now the one language that was spoken that they're going to continue to lie about, it was not Aramaic because Aramaic was a Hamitic language. It was the language of the Canaanites. You think it's the top language because those who were sent back to the bottom have been reclassified as descendants of Cami by the redheaded stepchild. And he is the one that keeps making up all of these stuff to continue to help use the world to maintain his blood birthright. And he's become the enemy, of course, of all nations because his blessing was to go and fight against all the nations to get what he wants. So that's why he recognizes in the deception that all the nations are supposed to be below the children of Nsemu, but his bloodline has been cut off. Okay, but are there remnants of the 72? Correct. But now, in the trickery and what's going on, is they're giving you the wheat, the tare sower, masquerading as the wheat sower. And the tare sower was also connected to the Banabeta of Isiale, who is working for those who were called Anansi, dogs and pigs, brood and vipers, the bottom dwellers. Okay? So that's why now the world, like in the days of Noka, which is what happened before, is upside down and backwards. But the Nephilim disappeared. Even though there are people today still making children with the fallen ones. And I'm going to show you how they're doing it. Okay. Now, again, this is for education purpose only, and I don't own the rights to anything. You can take you can eat the meat, spit out the bones. You can say Trey is crazy. I don't want to believe none of this stuff. The problem is all those who think they have been promised a great eternity are now going to see it was all a rouge, because there's still fake heavens for all of these pagans. All the heavens that were called by the pagans before Christ, the real Christ, was dealt with the crucifixion, they still exist. Okay, they still exist. But they are now claiming to be the non-hypocrite heaven, which is straight up garbage. So now the Canaanite heaven, or what they called heaven, which is really the Shekinah, is masquerading all over the world in different forms, just like before. But now it's telling you we are the non-hypocrite heaven, which is completely false. Okay? So we're going to show you today the scriptures of Hanukkah, because Enoki was the son of Cainah, and he was light-skinned. He was not melanated, because Cainah had leprous. His wife did not, but he turned her leprous because he wanted her to be like his curse. Because for one, he hated his, and I'm gonna go. I told you, the name Alice really means sister. Okay, so when people keep naming their child Alice, it means sister. Okay, in our language, Aleki was also a way to say sister or brother. Ma is the plural, and I'm gonna tell you how Maria, sister, Fuso Kongo Fuma Yeswe, Jesus Christ, how his mother got her name, because it's the plural of the word Aliyah. Okay, which is what now they made it, because like I told people, they enjoy the divine feminine lie. Because when you keep calling on Aliyah, and that's why they used her for the movie Queen of the Damned, whatever she called her name, okay, because she's rising now. This is the Jezebel spirit that the Messiah was upset about, okay? And this spirit calls good evil and evil good, and what that means is you're calling the way of the heathens good, and the pagans and the other nations good, and you're calling the non-hypocrite kingdom's way evil. Okay? That is what happened in the days of Noka, and you've been in it for 600 plus years. Okay? So every single priest, imam, rabbi of the whatever, priesthoods, every pastor that thinks that they are preaching the truth is going to discover that nothing changed. They're just taking you, they'll take you so far and you're going in a circle. It's going to be just like people who saw the video with a shepherd. There was a big fire, and they got the sheep to run around in a circle. Okay? That's what a Judas goat does, or a Judas bull, because it's the same. You have a lead bull, or you have a horse, the stallion that runs the herd. Okay? You got people acting like stallions, lead bulls, and lead goats or lead sheep, and what they're doing is they're taking their people to the slaughterhouse, taking the money and the bribery. And I'm going to tell you who was really the person that turned in Uzziah Congo, Fumu Yesaway, to be crucified. Because the story that you've been talked about, Yewande Iscariote, is completely false. So everybody want to put the blame on him when that's not who was really involved in turning him in. Okay? All praises, Kembo Kemba and Tatanyambi Yamazulu, King Fumu Kyakuisa. We're going to start off with a song. I don't own the rights to it. It's going to be a little long. I'm going to try not to play the whole thing, but all I'm going to tell you is this is why you got to be careful who you trust out here. If you're going to stay gullible McFly because this is what they call you, and you're going to call people an idiot if you're an idiot yourself, you're going to find out why you can't know everything. Because the fallen angels can also masquerade as black. That's why they want everybody to focus on color. Okay? Because it's all part of the scheme. If you got everybody focusing on stupidity and ignorance, then you can't see that you're being led astray. You cannot see that you're being taken for a ride and that you have promises that they can't keep. I'm going to talk about the real reason why they created fraternities and sororities. And I'm not just talking about now. I'm talking about back in the Greek days. Okay? I'm going to talk about why they created festivals and why the Most High would get upset, why we get ticked off, why we always want to be like the heathen. Okay? Because they've also, I say this, they've made the Babylonian festivals look fun. And yet people don't even know you are participating in rituals you have never even heard of. But they're masquerading as the Most High's way. Okay? Because not only are the Banabetu 6 days too soon, as it was posted in the book of Ubali, but you are 6 months and 6 days too soon. And the letter, now in the Kikongo, the Ve, which is the V, is not the 6th letter of the alphabet, but in the Phoenician language of Assyrian, because it's called Assyrian Aramaic. It's Assyrian Aramaic. The Canaanites are still fighting each other. They always will. And in all the other nations, the children of Cami will always keep fighting each other because they are worshiping the gods that need sacrifice, blood. The Most High really don't need blood, but he tolerates it. He tolerated it because his people did not understand what they're supposed to be doing. And that's why I told people, When this all going to come out, people are going to be so mad at Ubuntu because it was very simple. But our people don't ever learn. Nobody can know everything, and we are all the same. And if you think we're different, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because this is how it was supposed to be from the time that Tatanyambe brought the wine and the bread of heaven to Israeli, Yakubi, that was seen, because he knew that even in the womb, and people are going to say, well, how can babies do this? You're going to be shocked to find out how much they're hiding. That Esway, because of certain things that happened with his mother and father, the spirit of Kaina was manifesting in her womb, because he wanted to fight to be in Simba, even from there, because the fallen angels know, okay, they can never allow the offspring of the non-hypocrite creator to rule over them, because they hate it. Okay? So they will do whatever it takes. And this is why Tina Solomon ended up building that temple in the first place. Because the hypocrite kingdom does not like to be told what to do by the non-hypocrite kingdom. Never did. That's why the war continues, and people don't even know how much they have fooled people, past, present, and the future. I'm telling you. Fumiyasa Kusakongo went to the future. Of course, they want to try to stop him, because they don't ever want him to be in the chair that those who called him blasphemy put their king in the chair. And he was a fraud. So they want the hypocrite to remain in place of the one who never was. And now he's going to embarrass so many people, because he said there will be many like me. And anyone who served him never sat in his chair, but they helped people come to his chair. And the word we used for chair was kiti. Yeah, so now you're going to see why you call people kitty cat, chair cat. Because what it is many people are following the copycat, claiming to be the original. Okay? So let me get the music started. Again, all praises to Tatanyambi. We give all thanks to him for more revelation to come. And I'm telling you, we're getting there now. Because the 10 plagues that he put upon the nations, we're coming to the end of those. And that's where we are right now. And this is why things are happening that people don't get. Because they fooled you. Oh, tata patlendora. Oh, tata patlendora. Oh, tata patlendora. Oh, tata patlendora. Isari dadani ledora. Oh, tata patlendora. Isari samati ledora. Oh, tata patlendora. Isari dadani ledora. Oh, tata patlendora. Vis-à-vis la differenza, non penso che ti donne fatte, oh, tata patulendo, oh, non la devi, non la devi, oh, tata patulendo, oh, tata patulendo, Oh, human ways, like this. I'll be trapped on the way. I'm gone. Human ways, like this. I'll be trapped on the way. I'm gone. That's how I feel, I'll be trapped on the way. I'm gone. Be trapped on the way. I'm gone. All right, Kimber, hallelujah. Yangi Zoli Biluka, Pangi, Aleki Trey, Oketiwe Solele Banangram Benekono, and Zilan Zambia Wante Bakristu. We're going to talk about Christianos. Christianos was the worship of Helios Christos, which was connected to Hotep, Master Guru, Esau. Well, it was, I'm going to say it the Kikongo way. Hotep and Fumu Ngulu, Esau, Jesus Christus, okay? Which has now been changed into Hotep, Master Guru, Esau, Jesus Christ, which is really the Cushite god Tammuz, which they call Boss Hog, with the spirit of the daughter of the Nephilim, is now coming out of when Tubal Cain slept with the harlot, the whore Babylon. Okay. And she was not melanated. She was not per se like white, the lightest color, but more like a like my complexion, maybe a little bit darker. Okay. And this is the one they want to talk about the spirit that's called Nama, that many people don't know. Okay. Which goes back to the name Alice, which means in our language, it means sister, Aleki. So many people hear the Muslim greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Okay. They're mispronouncing what we taught them because that M part is connected to the Canaanite deception. We said Assalamu alaikum, okay, which means sister or brother. And if you say Assalamu alaikum, it's peace be unto the family, which another word we had for that was kintwadi or mukanda, which means kinship, tribes, or brotherhood. Now, the copycat, there's two different mukanda or wakanda. There's the one who was rejected and the one who was accepted. And this is why the mukanda of Eswe is connected to the pig god of before the flood and after. Okay. Now, the woman who has been erased out of the scriptures by the false Messiah, and the one who created what you want to now call, and I'll just say YT, you know how they say that, but they're not really like that. They're modified leprous people, meaning they carry the curse of Caina because when you murder and kill people, um, this is one of the things that happens. Okay, now the darker skin, dark, also is affiliated with the concept of coal, like chalk, like burning coal. Okay, so when you when you have a curse upon you, the fallen angels can turn you dark like coal because their job is to execute the judgments, but you don't worship them. And that's how they trick the whole world. It's like they were given jobs to do what they're supposed to do, but in the trickery, they're causing you to worship them. Okay? This is the whole reason why Tatanyambe would say, or Soninani Samana would say, you must check the spirit to see if they come from the Most High of truth. But what has now happened, and this is where the world's going to recognize, is you have been deceived about the one sowing the wheat and the one sowing the tare, because now you are convinced that the one sowing the tares is the one sowing the wheat, like the days of Noka. Okay? And he can be anybody. This is why he's given the concept of the Mad Hatter, because he wears the turban. Okay? And his turban it's a magical turban, and it can turn into anything. Of course, he really can't speak because he has been given the curse of blasphemy, and he has no face anymore because he needs your face. That's why when you hear people talking about, and of course they say it's conspiracy, it's like, okay, that's coined by the same people that doing it. There's still people talking about frazzle drip and spirit cooking because there's two fires. Okay. If you don't know the difference between the two fires, you're going to continue to be misled by the wrong star, the dog star. Okay. There's the dog star and there's the one who wasn't a hypocrite star. Okay? We're going to talk about spirit cooking, what that really is. And they coded it in The Lion King as the birdie boiler. Okay? The cauldron, the whatever you want to call these things, where they go and they make these spells or whatever that people now think is cute to dress up like a witch and whatnot. I'm like, no, you're gonna see this. This is what happens, okay? But this is not just starting about now. This is going back generations. All right. So, first of all, uh, the one who called himself the pig god, affiliated with what happened to Demuzid, which was the Canaanite god, okay, was the twin brother of Toma, Longoki Toma and Santo Toma, that they now call him Saint Thomas. Okay, he was Banabete Isaiale. He did not come from Yapeta. He did not come from Kanani. He did not come from Edom. He did not come from Ismaili. He did not come from Kemi. He didn't come from anybody but Banabete Isaiale. So now what they're getting a kick out of, all these so-called saints that the Catholics put up there, the majority of them were black or melanated. Okay? What they tricked you with is the man who asked for, he was a Canaanite. He had turned leprous. If I'm not mistaken, this is the story. He was getting ready to be crucified by the Sanhedrin because he was not allowed to be in the temple. And they used to crucify people for vagrancy. Like you see people out here, homeless and all that stuff. Okay, they really punished you for that. Okay? And Fuma Yesue chose to hear his plea and heal him of his disease. Now, the guy they talk about looks like the West End was I showed a picture to a guy, it's like that the Messiah who looks like Middle Eastern, whatever it was. That dude is really more like a Canaanite now. Okay, that's what they started to change into. Okay. And what happened was they were not pleased that he was now going to be able to be expunged of his crime. Because you got to remember, leprosy was a crime because it meant that you committed something that caused you, like in the Old Testament, that people talk about, it means that your parents did something wrong, that you should have turned out leprous like that. That's why people don't like Esau. Because it's like, but see, the problem is his parents weren't lepers. That's the lie. Okay, but they renamed it into a skin eating disease when it was really a color change in your face and your body. Now, there's ways to get it even when you have lighter skin or darker skin, but respectively, it was the concept that you had the curse of Cain on you because he was considered to be leprous, and we call him Leplik Kaina. That was the fugitive. Okay? This man was used as a pawn by the hypocrite Messiah after all the crucifixion went down, and Fuma Yesue said, "I'm going to show you that I am now the temple," and he issued pardons for what Rome had done and what the Sanhedrin had done, including raising the dead that had been crucified. Okay, and this whole thing about covered in linen, they learned that from us. The Banabete Visolide, we would be the ones covered in people in linen. Okay? This is how they prayed over you for, with the blanket and all that. It usually was a linen blanket. Okay? This is what allowed the electrical charges to manifest. All right. Now, here's the biggest lie ever. The crowns that were passed around by that day was meant to be a mockery of the Banabeta Ivisola kings, that anyone who saw themselves to be fulfilling the scriptures of returning to the way of truth from those who refused to no longer accept that Herod was the king, um, they were instructed, and this was fulfilling the scriptures, to have the curse that the Most High put on Cain. They now mocked him with it, because the rose bushes and the briar bushes were the thorns and thistles. Okay, that's really why they're mocking you with Eeyore, because he's eating thistles, because that is the symbolism of the hypocrite Messiah, the hypocrite kingdom, the jackass, the one who told the Most High, "Well, you knew I was going to do it anyway." Okay, that's why they're doing that. Okay, now all the deception that people are running into is because in the book of Hanukkah it talks about when the women, and we're gonna talk about where did they get these women from. Okay, this is the concept. Where did they get these women from? Now, um, everybody's convinced that Mama Ava and Tata Adama had two children, when the scripture literally says they had sons and daughters. Now, this is the over your head stuff. Because first of all, to keep you in the lie, they made you think that Kaina and Abele were twins. It's like, no, he was Leke, which also means younger. Leke. Okay? Younger. And so was his twin sister. They were younger than him, and his sister. Okay? Now, in our language, as it was reminded me by an elder, because everybody thinks Simba is just Swahili. It's like, no, it was a word that meant something else besides lying. Like Nkosi was a Kosa called word for lion. So that's what we call it, Nkosi Wayuda. Okay? This is the reason why when they showed the mockery with the movie Shaka, where he said MB, ya MB means evil. Okay? That's how we would say it. So now let's talk about the word devil, because devil is just another way that they hiding it. But the V and the B is a letter in the B, just like when you can say what's the word that many Spanish people use that can be V or B sounding, is I can't think of it now, that they say all the time that we used to speak it. Besos. Besos can be V or B. Besos or besos. Now you want to see where the word vessel comes from. Vessel. Kisses. The V and the B sound. So the word devil comes from the word devil. Devil or double. Devil. Okay? What that's about is people who look like but aren't. They're doubles. They're like replica, but they're not the same. Now, one of the reasons why they removed the other scriptures, especially the third, fourth, and sixth Bible of Eve, because in that scripture it talks about how the fallen angels made people to entice the children of Enseta to leave the holy mountain that the Most High instructed them not to leave. Okay? Now, the workers that helped build the cities of Kaina, because the Most High Tatanyambe decreed that the cities of Kaina would not be built by any one of the offspring that come from Tata Adama and Mama Ava. That's why they encourage their children to go the way of Nseta, who replaced Abaya after his death, Abele, because his son, he became known as Father Yah, and not to go the way of Kaina. Okay? Now, people talk about, well, how did they build their cities? Because they talk about, well, this is where the crafty council hides what happened. So the gods that were worshipped by Kaina formed a workforce. Now, they used DNA or Most High's creation, and the majority of these people who first came out were not leprous like Kaina. They were more darker skinned people. Okay, this is why you're seeing historians find structures that they're saying, well, wait a minute, we see black people building this stuff and they will not hide it. Now you had reddish brown giants because of the curse of Kaina, which is similar to what happened to the Edomites. And of course they had names. Some of them resembled the Banabeta Isale Zulu. Others were names of offspring. This is why when they say the whore has all the names of blasphemy written on her forehead, is that they were purposefully named their children to be walking blasphemers of the Most High's way, because they hated him, okay, for his judgment. So now when we look at the book of Hanoka, and we're going to get into this because, see, what's getting ready to happen now is the end of this lie, okay? So I did kind of put this in perspective. I did put it in, I put the word Maleki Sadeki, which means a family of safety or the priesthood. The Phoenicians are the ones who made it into the word Melchizedek, because they have a priesthood too that resembles, their priesthood resembled the Most High's, but they did wickedly. They did sacrifices of things they're not supposed to, because their gods would require children, okay? So let's tell a real story about what happened to Nsaka, or Isaac. The people call him Isaac. Isaac is the evil spirit that manifested in the form of Kuseka, specifically after he did something he shouldn't have done, which made the Most High mad, okay? Because what happens is, when you commit a sin, this is why they say the wages of sin is death. What wages of sin is death literally means you are paying the non-hypocrite kingdom instead of the non-hypocrite. Well, the non-hypocrite kingdom has to pay for you to the hypocrite kingdom, rather than the hypocrite kingdom paying back what he owes the non-hypocrite kingdom for you. Okay. Now, this is why they're hiding and don't want to tell the truth about Lamidi 51 or 50, where it says, curses the woman who bore you. Because they don't want to tell you, well, who is this woman and what does she bear? Okay? This is where things get a little bit interesting, because people don't want to believe it, because they're in the happy-go-lucky spell, which is a real spell. They're in the ignorance is a bliss, and they're in the sprite spell. So people are, hi, how are you? Okay, people are going to find out a lot of the things that they're doing to make people, they have what's also called the nice spell. The nice spell is altered from there was a goddess called Nike that was worshipped by the Nicolaitans, and when they made the letter C, her name, the K disappeared, but now they brought it back because they know You're too stupid to realize what NIKE stands for and the swoosh. Okay? That's part of the issue because all of that symbolism that they have is what many of the Canaanites, who some of them are still black, but there are many leprous versions of them, they are still masquerading as Yaqubi, Jacob. And you have other nations of Kemetic origin, Hamitic tribes. Um, Many other nations are still masquerading. Ammon, all of Psalms 83. And what they did is they removed the Most High's servant's name and they put the hypocrite because you're calling good evil and evil good. So Israel is really the evil twin, and Isaiah is the one they're trying to erase all of the remembrance of. And they did this through the fact that wicked Banabetu, who always ticked off the Most High and said we were better off with the pagan ways of the Canaanites, which was stupid on our part, is how the tribe of Mandani, or Danny boys, they like to mock him as, because they're Canaanites that came in masquerading as the tribe of Mandani. Now, at this time, and this is the lie, they were melanated people. So they would not have been accepted if they looked the way that they're talking now, and they know it. We would have said, no, all of y'all are leprous, man. There's no way that you are him. Okay? Similar to what was said by the king of Egypt after Egypt got their independence from Britain in the 1950s, when he said, you guys left white, black, came back white. We cannot accept you. Nasser. And also the king of Libya was in solidarity with Nasser's way of thinking to say, yeah, these cannot be them. Now, England and Israel, at the time that was formed in 1948, started a war against Nasser after he wanted to kick out the Rothschild Bank, because this is what happened. They encouraged the United States to get involved. Now, at the time Eisenhower was president, and this is going to get into what we're talking about, okay? Eisenhower, however, did not go along with the Joint Chiefs because, he realized, if I'm not going to send America. This is kind of like we're dealing with right now. I'm not going to send American lives because we had just gotten out of the Korean War. Now, when you're going to see who really started that war, this is why he kept talking about the military-industrial complex, because the DuPont family was behind all wars of America, especially since 1812. And their war bonds is how they continued to stay wealthy, and all the other so-called families understood that if we're not at war, we're not making money. So it goes back to, we're going to create the problem. And they know they always play, they do both sides. They always do this, okay? War is money. If we don't have a war going on, we're not making money, okay? Now, let's talk about the Balfour Agreement that was orchestrated by the Baron Rothschild and the British monarchy. The Balfour Agreement, all right, that many people don't understand, was to keep the bottom the top and keep the top the bottom. Okay. People want to talk about the transatlantic slave trade. They want to talk about all kind of slavery. First of all, slavery is all based off of what happened to the Canaanites. Okay. And of course, it came from the Latin word Slav, but it really means, okay, so if you say a slave in Kikongo or English, and you translate it into Congolo, Wiza, okay, it comes out in Pika, okay? Now, hear me out. I just now gave you another nugget to put the pieces back together that this is why you're going to get the word peak from. And I'm glad the Most High did this because peak means slave in Kikongo, in Pika. So then you're going to hear people, let's take a peek, okay, all this other stuff. Now you're seeing the Canaanites know and the secret society and all the people doing this stuff. Peak means slave in our language. So I told people our language is in the other nations, but it's coded. You know, like every time I go to the restroom, I get mad because I see the toilet says Toto. Well, the only people who said that was the Banabete Isayele. And that they know this because now when you call evil good and good evil, that also means a lot of the cultural traditions and everything that you do is going to be called wicked. And then the wicked cultures and everything are going to be called good. Okay? So when people keep talking about witchcraft, some people is like, you're a witch, you're a witch. It can be the pot calling the kettle black. The problem is if whatever you're doing is incorporating Canaanite ways, the Most High is going to call you Kihishi or Nada. He's going to say, you're nothing to me. Okay, this is what happened when Intinu Salama or Saola, who's and this is why happened. This is really what happened to Solomon because Davides, that whole thing happened. They brought spirits in that didn't belong. And this is why the Most High was getting mad because when you follow the way of the Most High of truth, then wicked spirits cannot interfere with your livelihood or your family, or you don't have the issues that you're dealing with. Everything stays in its proper order. Okay? So when he called himself a righteous and holy people unto themselves, their job was to set the example to the nations. How do you behave in order to block the influence of the hypocrite mountain that was started when the children of Canaan began making deals with this hypocrite mountain and these false gods again, okay? After they got a curse on them. So now, the whole reason why the non-hypocrite card call these people the bottom is because of the process that they did in order to reverse their curse. Okay? Now let me share my screen. Okay. So you're seeing in Pika, that is the word for slave. So you're gonna say, now you're gonna say, oh my gosh. Phone's on my phone. Who's that? All right. So let's talk about this. Okay, in Pika. Now, just happened? All right, let's go back to what it says. And I did put this in the Congo. All right. This comes from Hanoka. If you want to keep saying Enoch, that's Cain's son. Okay. His name was Hanoka. He was not, people keep saying there's two Enochs. No, his name was not Enoch. Okay. If that's why the real reason why you knock on the door is because that's where the name Enoch comes from. Okay. That's Cain's son. And he was a light-skinned guy. And right now he's out here fooling people. You're going to find out who he is. Not going to say too many more names, but you better be careful with hip hop because he's a part of that. Okay? This is the angel. It says, this was the leader and said unto them. Now, I want to let you know, when he was the leader of the watchers of Mount Hermon, he was not leprous looking. He did not look like the way you now see all of these non-melanated people walking around with blonde hair, blue eyes. No, he was not. The angels, when they came out, when they got booted out of the Pemba Kalunga, many of them were still melanated, and some of them are still melanated today. And there's male and females. They were not all male. Okay? That's why people got to understand this. Samyaza, and they put, now, if you put the H in there and you cut this part off, that is who, when they keep saying Shem, that's who they're talking about. Okay? When they keep saying Hashem, this is the god of the Canaanites and the leader of Mount Harmony, which somehow got renamed Mount Sinai, because that's what it is. And the giants and a lot of the Nephilim were born through when the Canaanites slept with the angels. So when people keep talking about, well, where did these other so-called Nephilim come from with the Most High, he said, look, were there hybrids that got created? Once again, yes, because another Nephilim was created when Noah got drunk. And he's Noah. And no, he did not look like Cain at the time. He's a Sumerian god, and most of the Sumerian gods, when you understand the original looks of them, they were not melanated. I mean, they were not modified leopard looking. They did not have the skin that was, white like snow when Massa put his hand in his tunic, okay, and his hands in him, it came out and the sort of Pharaoh that who the God of truth was, and then put him back. Because he was showing, because the reason why he did that, and they're lying about it, is the Egyptians knew the name of the god responsible for leprosy. Okay? They knew it. They knew what God would make you like that in their repertoire of the pantheon of gods that they worship. Okay? And that's why he was a part of that process. So, ona wakala sen fumo a umbavovese vo. So umbovese, like when they say Yesu umbovese, it means he's the leader. He's the top. In Gina Wonga Voke Nusinga, this is where the word singer, because I told people, they are putting their names and writing them in as the same people who they claiming to be. Nsinga Indima Kusala, Diambu Yai Mono Mosi Mpamba, Tafuta Ndola Ya Disumu Ya Nene. Nene means sin. So when you keep saying zombie wanene, zombie wanene, this is the one who cleanses of sin. Okay? Bao banonsono bam tu vutila bavova, bika beto babonsono dia ndefi, beto babonsono. Okay? Let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecation not to abandon this plan. This is when they went from being called Maleki Congo, because they had already been booted out for this, that they were no longer welcomed in the Pemba Kalunga. They now call themselves Brothers in Arms. And they had in the word that we used to say arms is Alma. Okay? Beto Mosina Kutonganaka Makna de Pula Yakansina Kusala Kimayai. Ibosi ya Awonso Badidi. Okay? Didi. They swear then all together and bound themselves. So this is what P. Diddy's name means. Okay? Didi. Right here is what they said. Iboso ya Awonso, because if you think the fallen angels were speaking English, they were not. Ndofi yo Kangama Mwana Mvovo Miami. This word's popping up again. Miami is a Latin word. No, it is not. Miami is a Kikongo word. Nazula na yo bao yonso vandaka. And kama zole yina kulumukaka na balumi ya yaleri. And they were all in 200 who descended in the days of Yaleri. Y'all want to hear where the word alimony comes from? Watch this. Now, Nsongi is a word that means summit. Ya and Gumba Ya, and we would have pronounced this Almoni. Elmoni. Herman. Almoni. Sound familiar? Alimony? Almoni? So when you pay alimony and restitution, when you get divorced and the Canaanite system masquerading as the Most High's kingdom, you are paying restitution to Mount Hermon. Okay? Man, if y'all don't wake up by now, who is marrying you people, the Lord of the Rings? Because the Lord of the Rings is who created these people. And he was not a so-called YT God at the time. And no, this is why they want to keep promoting this baloney story that the melanated people all come from Kami, so that we all continue to practice Kanani ways. Baloney. Garbage. The Banabetu of Isaile were never supposed to be the matriarch system, the Bakongo people. This is what kept us going back into captivity. And if anyone wants to still believe that the Roman Empire, Christians are praying to the non-hypocrite God when they are talking to Lilith, masquerading as Tatanyambi, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because you are still worshiping the mother of the Cushite god, Nimrod. That's why her name comes first in the name Israel, Isis, Ra, and El. Alset, Alsur, and Heru. She's Alset. That is not my mother. Bull crap. I do not come from Isis. No way. But all the other people do. When the scripture says, and now they want to say Jeremiah didn't exist. Of course, when the spin doctor gets exposed for his lies, they're going to want to play games when they find out you caught them, the thief, like Kimbonga was saying. And too many people don't understand both of these organizations got infiltrated because of those who wanted to make sure that a certain person stayed sitting in that chair that he stole during the time of Nero. Oh yeah. We told these people, I don't know how many times we had to say that the twin brother of the one you keep calling Jesus, is not the one who was not a hypocrite, and he would always call the disciples that followed him, including Philippi, evil. He called his own brother, and he's the one that turned in Yeshaya Kongo to the Sanhedrin. Why? Because like they showed you, and I know what my job was because now and it went over everybody's head. He was not invited to the supper. Now let me tell you the truth about Yundi Iscariote. Oh man. First of all, he was not wicked, like people think. He was born. He got baptized. He got cleansed. Like all the others, he was purified by the Messiah. He had to make it look like, and this was already arranged, that the Sanhedrin had the authority to crucify Kuswa Kongo when he said, that's when he's done the harassed him. He said, you're not crucifying me. I'm allowing you to do this. So let me tell you the real story. The pieces of silver that was supposed to have been used in the exchange as the bounty, because this is what that's what it was. It was a bounty. So it was a bounty for the arrest of anyone claiming to be Messiah. And this is how they all got collected by the legionnaires of Rome. They sent out anyone they thought identified as Messiah, they would pick them up, including the leprous guy. You don't get this. Anyone who was proclaiming that in Simba Wayuda or Yesukusa Kuswa Kongo was Messiah was picked up by Rome when they were getting ready on the Ipaseka, on the Passover, on the Paki. We said Paki, okay? This is what really happened. And at that time, many of the members of the Sanhedrin were not the way you see them in Hollywood today. Nah. If you think that's how they looked 2,000 years ago when they did this, you fell for the magic screen that they lying about. Because they didn't start looking like that till they start mixing up with the Mongolians. And let me tell you, the people who got crossing the burning sands when they got pushed up into the mountains by the Ishmaelites. Because you got to remember, because the Ishmaelites were still descendants of Ensamu, just like the children of the Kuseka, and we're going to get into why the Most High had to prove how he was going to prove he wasn't the hypocrite. The reason why he was going to prove to Abana to show him that when he called Nsaka to go and Abana to crucify Nsaka or to offer him as an offering, he was going to show him I'm not the Canaanite God that needs, because at that time, the Canaanite gods requested child sacrifices. This is the whole story behind this sacrifice. Now, the Most High did receive the other sacrifice as a payment of the sins of any of the household of Abana at that time to the goat god. Okay, Tatanyambe, like he told he's a living God. He says, I really don't need sacrifice, but I do it in order to pay off the debts of anyone who is doing these things, because that's what happened in the beginning. Okay, the offering that was made by Abele to the Most High was symbolic of the promise. And this is why Cain had to kill Abele, because when he realized that his bloodline was not going to carry the righteous seed, he was angry. But his brother was going to be the one to bring forth the promise. Not to mention the whole story about what happened with the sisters. That the Catholic Church decided, well, we don't want you to know about it. And most I was like, they didn't have that authority to do that. But they say they did. And the other children. Okay? So now, Impina Bingaka, Yo Ngumbas Emoni, Sambo, Elomi. So now they made a pact to marry wives. Okay? And of course, these are their names. And Azazi and Kumba Sanfumu, this is how you really would say, okay, what their leader, then you have this one, then you got that one, then you got this one, you got all these. I'm not going to really, I'm going to tell you right now, there's one right here called Sarel. That is where you get the name serial killer from. That is where you get the name cereal you eat for breakfast. And that is where you get the word serial number. Okay? Look what Sock Mountain he come from. Okay, you got another one. You see this guy right here? This one here and this one here. This is Daniel. This is Ezekiel. So now you're going to find out, for them that want to keep believing that the Bible is inspired by the non-hypocrite God, the Canaanites who wrote these scriptures, yes, they did. And they're involved with the Ishmaelites who wrote the Quran and everything, because remember, they served under all the nations and the Torah, because they're involved with that too. Okay? That's why they put the name of their city of Helios Biblios, because it was called Helios Biblios. And you're going to find out Jerusalem, that's why they made the J. Jerusalem was originally spelled Herusalem, Haru Salem. This is two Canaanite gods. That was a city that was connected to Phoenicia. Now, the Phoenicians, or at one point, Kanani, and this is where you're going to find out why we're dealing with now with this coding with FIFA and the so-called the World Cup, and why Argentina is a major part of this. Because they got gullible McFly people out here that still think that there's 7 continents and now they found an 8th when it was one continent. Cachopian and Zombie, Yambe, and people call it, embryo, it became embo or whatever. It's like, oh, but see the name Pangia is from the incorporated into Kanani when they were also under the Greeks as servants, because the Greeks also connected to Yapeta and also Kami. Then you're going to see they used to be melanated too. Okay? They took, and this is how it went. They took the Egyptian gods and renamed them, but the Egyptian gods came from the Sumerian gods and got renamed. Then they got renamed as the Romans, but then you go all around the world, they got different names in China, they got different names in South America, they got different names because the Canaanites served under all the nations, and these gods had to hide themselves because if you knew all along that they were the same Canaanite gods that were messing people over, then the devil would have been, then the devil couldn't devour people. Then the lion who comes to devour wouldn't be able to continue to hunt because you'd know, okay, this is the same joke as the Canaanites. So of course they would read, and then that's why the one disguise that they use, because they know the Zohar tree that the Canaanites were talking about was a tree of animals that we were not supposed to eat from because it would turn you into an animal. That's what happened when they fell. Your mind would go and scramble like the animals. You become animalistic in your behavior. So you would now have the characteristics of animals and not the one who created the animals. Okay? Whenever the hypocrites would create Dubals, they would have to be taught not to act like the animals, but to act like people and walk like a. That's why that song that says walk like a man, talk like a man, you're going to find out that song is about training you not to be like the animals. Muntu. But you can't be Muntu if you come from who? The one who was called, the one who said she could have no children, no husband. Okay? So now when we talk about and all the others together with them took themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go on into them. Now, what is that? They can't put that in there. They know that's the consummation process. Okay? And then it says they taught them charms and enchantments and cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants, and they became pregnant and they bare giants, great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. Now I'm going to show you how big that is. All right. The 3,000 ells equates to about 4,500 feet tall. Now you're going to understand, and this is why people don't want to talk too much behind the closed doors about, oh yeah, no, because the Canaanites, when they started sacrificing to the false gods, they made more of these entities. So then now let's talk about when we said when the Banabetu of Isaiah went to Jericho and not the Phoenicians acting like it's their story when it's the War Kadesh people. You don't get this. So when Tatanyambi took his people out of Engipiti, these entities were also found in Engipiti because the children of Kami were once again making children with Mount Hermony. alimony, alo, alim, alimony. Okay, so when Tatanyambe, when he had his people walk around Jericho, the Maleki Congo descended and destroyed these jokers here. And that's why when they say we look like grasshopper, that's why. Now, the biggest deception is, but when you make relationships with these angels, other entities would come out. And in the days of with the son of Seta and Seta, who was Inosi, when they got tricked to do worship like Cain, you got mixtures of animal spirits and you had elves and dwarfs connected to this. So what people don't understand is certain entities have been hidden from you that they did know about in Greece, but then others are still not out there. And see now, because you're called good evil and evil good, you are convinced that the elves and the fairies and all these other creatures are not wicked when they are from the entities that are once again hiding themselves. And because the people come from these entities, again, like the days of Noah, when he made the children to call the children out of the mountain, this happened again and again. When Tatan Sami was getting upset when he says, learn ye not the ways of the heathen. Now, let's talk about the word heathen, because our word for that, Yamimpani. So Yamimpani, which we also would say Mzungu, Kariampemba, Mundele, okay? Where did these words come from? They come from the fact that we knew that there were people that came from the hypocrite woman that has now vanished behind the scenes. And now everybody loves her more than the Most High. Why? Because the Bana Betu did not stay where they were supposed to, like it says in Isaiah 1. That's why now when it talks about the ox and the donkey not knowing where they belong, so when we go to the bottom, we get treated like the ox and the donkey. So now when we go to Isaiah 1, and we go back and translate it into how we would have said it, and not in, because they're going to find out English is Congolo backwards, because Phoenician Aramaic comes from Congolo. That's the lie. Okay? Aramaic is not a pure language, and neither is Yiddish, and neither is Arabic. And for doggone sure, Latin is not a pure language, Chinese is not a pure language, French is not none of these languages are pure languages. You're going to find this out. All right. Beno Bantu, Yazulu Beno Wamono, Wa Ntoto, take off the nasal, take off the Enye. The Enye comes from the Kikongo nasal. When they got the Enye in Spanish, when you get that N-A and Enye, It comes from our nasal, nieto. That's why we would say nieto or ntoto. That's where the N comes from for real. Sambu, that's why we pray. And Fumu and Zambi Kituba. Ever played the tuba before? Nde mono me sansaka banamingi. Banso bo kulamaka na mono. Ngumba na zabaka munkwa na yo umpunda. That's the umpanda, but it says they say umpanda. I don't know how to act this U turned into an A. Ke zabaka, see? Kisika yabo yabumbaka magia, which became media. Magia, food. Ya mfumo na no kunsu bantu ya Israeli. It's supposed to be Israeli. Israeli. We didn't say that. Take the R out. It's Israeli. Kezabaka mono ve. You see that? VE? That's where the ve in Spanish comes from. Like when you say a vez en cuando. The ve comes from there. The ve is there. Boke bakis kisaka monove. Yahweh. The Phoenician letter Vav, or Aramaic, Assyrian Aramaic, is not Yavav. And the YHWH that they want to keep saying is the Most High is really the god El, which is the Canaanite god. And you're going to see this because they took the Mongolians mixed with the people who were supposed to serve the Canaan, the Phoenicians, the Kanani, served the children of Yapeta. They took that language that they spoke and mixed it with theirs. Because the children of Kanani were supposed to serve all under the brothers. Okay? Now, when you say the word younger or young, leki or toko, baleki. If you say baleki, it could be many. So when you say Alice, the Most High, the letter Ayah, because if we put Abaya, which is really the what we call our language, Abaya, the language, the language of the Most High, Abayan Zambi, okay? Aleph comes from the Canaanite, and alphabet is Greek, alpha beta, alpha beta. So when you keep saying alphabet, that's what you're saying. You're saying alpha beta. Okay? Now, if you're going to sit there and tell me that that's why they had to take out the scriptures of Maccabi where he says, and they go as and onto like the Greeks that I do not wish them to do. Okay, this is in let me go to First Maccabee. This is why they took it out. Okay. And this is where it talks about Alexander the Greek. And they got mad because he had this. Okay, now, who are the Medes? The Medes are China. And they are descendants. Okay, so when you say, what are the Asians? What son of Noah, which is really Noka, do the Medes descendants watch? Japheth, Yapeta. So I told people when they made that movie Mulan and they showed the Mongolians fighting the Chinese, That is who is now claiming the tribe of Aban and Saka Yakubi. And the Edomites, of course, because of Esau's blessing, remember what it was, Esau's blessing. Watch this. This is why they all hate him. But at the same time, he's still masquerading as Yakubi. So what does it say? And this is why they had to take out the book of Yoseli, because what he was wearing, and it was more in depth about his blessing and the lentils. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you where every Abrahamic religion has fooled you. Now, watch this. Listen to the blessing of Yakubi. Jacob, that name, whatever, that he was called Jacobi. Jacob is really Esau. We're good. Okay. So Yakubi went over and kissed him, and when Asaka caught the smell of his clothes, he was finally convinced and looked at him and said, "Oh, the smell of my son, the smell of the outdoors, where the informer was blessed." Now, in the book of Yoseli, Yasher, he is also wearing the leopard skin that he got from when they killed Nimrod, but they covered this up, that Kami stole from Noka, who was going to give it to Insemu. The leopard skin always goes to Nsimba. So then Kami committed an act of theft because he wanted the leopard skin from his brother who was Nsimba firstborn. And what did he do? It got handed to Nimrod. And I'm going to tell you how you've been fooled with this. Kusi was firstborn of Kami, but Nimrod was not the firstborn of Kusi. When you go look at the children that Cush had when he was Kandake, when he was Nagas, because that's what he was. Kusi was Nagas, and his wife was Kandake. First of all, the reason why he got in trouble when he hooked up with Semiramis, this is what made the Most High say, "You broke my covenant," by marrying the shapeshifter Lilith, who is now coming in the form of Semiramis, okay, who was his other wife, and he was not even in Simba, the firstborn of Kusi. So here's where the evil twin brother, because he had a twin sister. That's why I keep saying it. And also, when Adama ate the fruit, he created a twin of himself and a Nephilim. And this one is now claiming once again where he says, "I am the only son of God." So when people repeat John 3:16, you are talking to the one that was split from Adamaya, Azinga, when he ate the fruit that he wasn't supposed to. And the one that split from Mama Ava when she consumed it as well. And that is Eve, and that is Adam, because he went from being Nzinga, Yahweh Congo Bene Yahweh Congo, or Yambe Bene Yambe, Adamuya, to now being that split. So when you keep calling good evil and evil good, you are talking to the wrong spirit of the tree of wickedness. And now, through the belief in the lie, the strong delusion that was put on the world by the Most High himself, he said it, you believe any lies, then I'm going to have you under delusion. So everybody keeps talking about the matrix. The Most High did it. Tatanyambe gave you the matrix and the hypocrites running it. Again, so he says it. A matrix is created, and I'll give you the 10 horns and the 7 crowns. The 10 horns represents all the horns of Cain, who really is now a dragon, who's really now a beast, who's really now a demon. Okay, excuse me. And then the 7 horns represents each one of these sisters that they call the 7 sisters, okay, that went to go and interact with the fallen angels. Okay? Now watch this. From the dew of heaven and the riches of the earth, may God always give you abundant harvest of grain and bountiful new wine. This is why you're going to see why now those who think that they have replaced Yakubi are convinced that they are blessed. But here's the problem. Do you see the dew of heaven there? We didn't need rain. Rain was a judgment on Cain. Cain's fields could not have water. They had to be barren. So now you beg for the water. You beg for what is fertilizer really for? To get the ground to yield fruit. Because it's not supposed to. Okay? To help. So now the thorns and thistles, you're calling the God of the thorns and thistles good, and you're calling the God who cursed the thorns and thistles bad. Okay? May many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. And will the curse and you and who all who are cursed will be cursed, and all those who are blessed will be blessed. So that's whole thing. If you bless or curse, that's a big lie. The hypocrites are making it up. All who are cursed will be cursed. They're misinterpreting it. All who are blessed, all who are blessed, you will be blessed. All who are cursed, you will be cursed, and all who are blessed, you will be blessed. So what blessed actually means cursed anyway in English, okay? It's buluki. So now what he's saying is if any of your offspring walk in wickedness, then a curse will also be on the land. If anybody walks in righteousness, then righteousness will be on the land. So many people are misinterpreting this scripture for these frauds because that's not what he meant. He said it when your nation carries a blessing or walking in truth, the nation will also have the righteousness. If the nation walks wickedly, then you will have curses upon it. So let's talk about the spiritual temple that came. What did he come to do? Erase any curses that had been placed upon the house of Israel and any of the descendants that were meant to be coming through the lineage of Nsemu. This is why the liars of Mount Harmony created replacement theology that everyone is being tricked by. Because now what you are doing is you are calling those who were cursed as a nation of the children of Yapeta, the people who were also given the blessing of Yakubi. All because when there were those Banabetu of Isaiah who said, you are not the spiritual temple, listening to the spirit that was on the Canaanites and the other nations, yes, the scriptures were fulfilled. But once he was proven to be the spiritual temple, that was to separate the Banabetu of Isaiah back from the liars. It was designed to cause the Banabetu of Isaiah to separate from any wicked spirits that had been brought upon the nations by listening to the people who were worshiping false gods. Now let's get it. That's why the biggest trick the jackass ever pulled on the world is thinking those who come from the other bloodlines can replace the bloodline. When even the Messiah, when he came, he said, you must learn the truth from the bloodline. So now, why are they called the three frogs? Is because each one of these beliefs that spawned a false spirit is now teaching the world to act like the frog god, masquerading as the God who created the frog. So now you worshiping the frog, you worshiping the pig. That's why when he said you know not what you worship, it means you worshiping everything but the God of truth. That's what he meant when he said that. Fuma Yesaway. So now, instead of following the way that's not a hypocrite, you're following the way of the one who was a criminal, not the one who was called a criminal. And that's why he had to say, be careful that you do not follow after hypocrites, because then you will be like them. You must follow the way of non-hypocrisy. And so now you have now been convinced that two separate groups are now one, blurring the lines, all because of Isaiah, because his name was Yesiah. And they even asked him, some say you like Yesiah. That's how he got the name Yesiah, because he was Yesiah in spirit when he came. All the prophets that taught the truth, he was in them. And then he came in the flesh because we didn't get it from them. He said, okay, now I'm going to come myself. And he was in the image. And that's why he said, you see me, you've seen the Most High. That's why they're laughing, because they gave you the person that was accused of a crime of leprosy like Cain and said, here is your Messiah. And they're laughing about it because they know that's what happened that day. And those who were converted that should have never been converted are using this to continue the intent of what was established when the fall started, erase. Because like in the days of Noah, okay, was also to erase the other bloodline. That was part of it. And so they're doing it again. So just like in the days of Noah, they're trying to erase that bloodline of Inseta by you continuing to feed the spirit of those who came from the realm. And I'm going to show you where it happened. If you go back to Hanukkah, he's going to tell you. Let me see if I can pull it up. And I'm going to conclude here. This is why they had to hide it. Let's see. There's a different Earths, I think it's called. It might be under the luminaries. Because there were different realms. And they got extras here. Let me see if it's under the luminaries. Now, of course, this angel, his last name was really Lulia, because they had to change. They always going to say you. All right, so here it says, I saw, okay, and the first law of the luminary of the sun has risen in the eastern portal of heaven and is setting in the western portal of the heaven. And I saw the six portals of which the sun rises in six, and when the sun sets and the moon rises in these portals, and the leaders of the stars and who they lead, and they coded this in the movie Fantasia. You're gonna find this out. That's why they're messing with you. And following each other, accurately corresponding order, also to the right and the left. And for those go forth the luminaries. And then he said, now he goes and he's going to show you. He went to where the prisons were. Let me see. Wait a minute. Let me see if it's the heavens, because he went to the different heavens and what he saw was the prisons. Okay, so let's go. Let's see. Maybe I had it. Maybe I was right where I was at. But what he did was they took him. Let me go back. Let me see if I can't find it, because I know he was talking in the scripture, and this man is going up in this thing. You think he looked like Cain? Nope. He was not cursed like Cain. Because he went and he saw. Now I'm gonna show you where they're lying. Now this is what I'm talking about. Thus I saw the position and how the moon rose and the sun set in those days, and all 5 years are added together. The sun has an overplus of 30 days, of all which days accrue to be those 5 years, and they are full amount 364 days. So how you get 365 now? That's in Zambia. That's Daniel 7:25. Okay. And the sun and the stars bring all the years exactly as they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but to complete the years with perfect justice and 364 days. So if you're living under the 365-day deception, you are in the wrong kingdom. And they know that. This is what they did. Okay? So there's no way that if you look at even the Chabad calendar, it doesn't even say 364. It doesn't. It's shorter. Then you go to the Muslim and all the other people, their days, the only people that even come close to 364 is Rome, and they got another day added. So you know something is off. Okay? And I think the problem is I think is where he saw these other realms is the judgment of the angels. Hold on, let me get to that. And then I'll end there. Okay, the judgment of the angels. Because see, this is what people are going to find out. So I heard Micaiah, because his name is Micaiah. This judgment wherewith the angels are judged is a testimony for the kings and the mighty ones who possess the earth. Okay? And I know that some of these prisons that they were put into, this is also what was tied to the legend of the Bayuda or the Jews. And what it was is it talked about the different realms that had been created for the different offspring or whatever had happened. And so let me explain what happened is when you follow the way of the evil twin brother, the redheaded stepchild, what you are actually doing is putting yourself in the realms of the fallen angels that were cursed and judged. You're putting yourself in the prisons that they belong to. And the world's going to see this now. When you follow the way of the non-hypocrite kingdom, because when the Messiah said, let them alone, the blind lead the blind, okay? What does that mean? They operate in the kingdom of prisons. So now when people say, oh, we're fighting for freedom, how do you fight for freedom serving the false kingdom, Kihishi, Dogbone, the dog star, okay? The Most High made it very clear that those who were to serve Yakubi were the nations that had turned their back on him. But he also made it clear if Bana Beta of Isaiah turned their back on him, they would be lower than those who didn't. But the whole point of him making his law, statutes, and commandments was so you would not. But of course, because through the lost in translation and how they've done it, you're mixing up judgments of the way it was done through the Canaanite deception, false spirit, and not the Most High. Because see, people are going to learn that some of the things that Massa taught Moses, okay, were corrupted by people who are lying. Because the one thing you got to understand is the Most High did not make the rules for us to destroy each other. He made the rules as a deterrent not to follow the wrong mountain. And when he said circumcise our hearts, what he means was you need to have pity, just like what the Messiah said when he came. How are you going to throw stones if you are guilty of offending the Most High? How are you going to do this? If you are a hypocrite, how are you going to now be teaching people the way? You need, it's like, if you're going to crucify me, you need to crucify yourself. That's what he was trying to explain. Okay? And so now, why is the world the way it is today? Because those teaching and claiming that, oh, we're supposed to be the light unto the world. That's not true. The light unto the world was meant to be Banabetu of Isaiah, the Banabetu, okay? And the hypocrites are saying you are replacing them. When it literally says salvation has to come through the bloodline. So this is the real understanding that how Revelation 12 is now fooling the whole world, because what the devil did and his deception is from, he keeps saying that, oh, demons didn't exist until Christianity. The Most High is like, that's a lie, because in every single belief, there's a good and bad God involved. Even in Egypt, that's a lie. The spin doctor is full of garbage. And the next thing is to convince the people who were from the other nations who are now not in their correct order that you can now teach the Most High's children when you come from the hypocrites. It's like, how, if you are connected to the Canaanite gods, how are you going to teach the people the way of the Most High? It's not possible. And that's what we're talking about. If the law is not in you, how are you going to teach the law? All you're going to do is follow it carnally, not in spirit, you see? And that's what's going to happen here. So, all right. So I'm going to end it right there. All praises to Tatan Zambi. We're going to continue to grow and understand this. Let me get a song going here. Come in. And then we're going to talk about some stuff here that's going on that we need to be prepared for, because we're heading in that direction. She's in the restroom. How you doing? All right, so let's get into it, because like I told people, man, you know, you really got to be careful with what's going on, because this entire world is now going to find out there was somebody planting the tares and there was somebody planting the wheat. The problem is the one planting the tares is masquerading as the one planting the wheat. But when you try to tell people this, like the days of Noka, you're the idiot. And now you're going to find out the one planting the tares and the one planting the wheat, they resemble each other more than you know, and they don't look like Cain. But in the leper side, they made this make you think. So he's fooling you. Leper Esau is masquerading as the one who wasn't a hypocrite. Okay? When there's love at home. And why we say this is, if you love Esau or you love the hypocrite Messiah, then you are loving in ignorance. If you love the real God of Yakubi and Jacob, that's when you really understand that, you know, the world is being led astray, because you've been tricked to call good evil and evil good, and you just run around like, oh, everything's fine. No, everything is not fine. And now you're going to see, like in the days of Noka, you think you're going to be on the ark with the animals when you're going to be in the water. Okay? Let me say that again. You've been tricked into thinking you're going to be in the ark with the animals when you're going to be in the water. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, now you're going to find out. You got a lot of people who are thinking they're going to get the eternity when they're going to get the oven, the fire. When he says you're going to gather the wheat and put them in the fire and burn and all that stuff, this is what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. Que se qui tu zitele, vo tu zolana, kwamayanga langanga, vo tu zola watna, wete yolu vuvamu, bila mina kikilu, impasi kezintantwako, vo tu zolana, 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 zolana. Wete wingi tunang wow, vo tu zolana. Kese kingi vananzo, vo tu zolana. Ke tu monan sitako, vo tu zolana. Kana vo tu kondangwa, lekwa yingi ovanza, inasinu didi tuva, vo tu zolana. Zolana, zolana, zolana. Wete wingi tunan wow, vo tu zolana. Zambe okutu donganga, vo tu zolana. Singa kutu sambula, vo tu zolana. Wanta ekutu wikila, vuvu etutu danga. Kemukutu salanga, vo tu zolana. Zolana, zolana, zolana. Wete wingi tunang wow, vo tu zolana. So, just to say to finish up, you're going to find out very soon that those who think that the fallen angels weren't trying to act better than the one who wasn't a hypocrite, that they did good, you're going to see you've been indoctrinated so much because they are the gods of good and evil, which means when they masquerade like angels of lights, they're doing good things, but they're doing it to bring you to the bad. So if you're not recognizing the world right now is in deep trouble because too many people are following those gods of that wrong mountain, now you're going to see what the Most High was talking about a strong delusion. All praises. Zola Klingi, Sambulolo, Inawezi Yable Kongo Kutwala, Ingita.